The technological marvel that is electronic fuel injection inherently relies on the electrical system of a vehicle to power it. From 1987 to 2001, the Cherokee XJ alongside all other 4-liter equipped Jeep models are such examples. Electricity must complete a circuit to power anything. Where a positive charge exits the battery, it must also return to it through the negative terminal. Conveniently, because metal conducts electricity, we can run a power wire to whatever needs it, and then a return wire to the body or frame connecting the battery with just a simple bridge here. On the 4-liter, battery power is supplied to the starter through a direct connection, and it grounds through the engine, returning to the battery with a cable mounted on the side of the block. Almost everything else electrical also uses this path for a ground, so we make use of one centralized return wire instead of an individual wire for every sensor or light bulb. There's also an additional ground back here just for good measure. But once the engine is running, all these sensors, spark plugs, and fuel injectors are out there slowly draining energy from the battery. To keep the battery charged, we make use of an alternator, also called a generator, which transforms rotational energy into electrical energy. This new electricity is sent to the power distribution center, which, as you may assume, distributes power throughout the vehicle. The alternator also continues this line back to the battery though, where it keeps it charged as you drive. So the next time you want to start the engine, the battery has the juice for it. These magnificent 7 wires are the freeways of the grid. We have a fusible link in the alternator wire to protect the vehicle from catastrophic alternator failure, and starting in 1991, a new ground wire from the fender to the battery for a bit more integrity in that department. Each era of the XJ has a slightly different way of delivering electricity. In this video, you'll see how it works from 1996 to 2001, but the overall function is the same for the older years. Speaking of, these Jeeps are old. The insulation on these wires breaks down over decades, corrosion takes hold, and gradually, these freeways fall into disrepair. You may or may not have any visual signs of decay, but if you're chasing down seemingly random and hard to diagnose electrical problems, or if the thing just doesn't want to start, well, firstly make sure your starter didn't fall out, but if that's good, the JeepCables Big 7 upgrade makes a world of difference. In this kit provided to me by anonymous Benefactor, thank you very much, we not only replace, but upgrade the 7 main wires in the XJ's electrical system. You have an option between 4-gauge wire for anything remotely stock, or 2-gauge wire for you maniacs out there trying to run the Las Vegas Strip off your alternator. The kit includes a new fuse, which replaces the fusible link in the stock harness, and it goes in the same spot. So following this diagram, all you gotta do is start ripping out wires and putting the new ones in. For any electrical work, you obviously need to disconnect the battery, and in this case, I'll remove it from the vehicle entirely to give us more working space. There are 2 nuts that seem to vary in size with every XJ I see holding the tie-down bracket on, and then it lifts out of place. Right off the bat, the first bolt I go to remove wants to snap off. The exposed threads on the back side of it are all rusty, so I sprayed a small amount of peanut butter on there through this convenient hole. Working it back and forth, it was released, and the battery to fender wire is removed. I put the bolt back in its spot so I don't lose track of it. From here, I just started working in a linear path towards the engine. The positive feeds from the fuse box are PDC, again leaving that nut where it goes for now, and then I began unwrapping all the tape and wire loom on the 20-whatever-year-old harness. I unplugged whatever the hell this thing is because the wires were in the way, and I also unplugged some other AC thing and this gray connector back here. My next plan of attack is the alternator connection. Covered by a plastic cap that had removed itself in my case, I snuck a ratchet down there and removed the wire. I pulled the plastic cap off, we'll reuse that on this new harness. Below that nut is a tabbed connector, at least on 2001, which oddly has a unique 1 model year only alternator. Next up, the engine block ground point, of which there are two. The rear one goes to the battery, and they're both used on the engine harness as grounds for every sensor on the engine. There's of course no better time to clean these up. A simple wire brush will get some of the rust off, but if you're having issues with any random engine sensor, it may be worth taking these studs out and cleaning the other threads too. Both of mine look perfectly fine though. Below the Jeep, we'll find this 9/16 bolt for the starter feed wire, and then a 13 and an 8mm nut on the starter. With those connections removed, head back up to the top and pull the whole conglomerated mess out of there. The starter feed wire bracket is just a simple clip. So we have 4 main wire bundles in this harness. We have battery positive to the fuse box, battery positive to the starter, that's that one. We have battery negative to fender and battery negative to engine block, that's that one. This is alternator to fuse box. Those 3 are all replaced by the JeepCables kit. This is what we got left. This is just the connector that has 4 wires in it. This goes to the alternator. This is something to do with the AC, and this is the starter solenoid. Now that's all in one big harness. We're replacing that part. We're going to keep this part original, but I like to take this out to inspect it just to make sure all these wires are good too. Now we can start assembling the JeepCables. I'm using the 150 amp fuse of the optional 200 amp because I don't really have any electrical mods on the thing. You'll also note all of these wires have labeled ends, which makes everything super easy to organize. Back on the Jeep, I started by loosely connecting the alternator. Then the PDC connections, vaguely resembling the factory setup. I'm thinking battery positive is going to be right about here. And I've just got these cleverly wrapped around. I think I'm going to put the fuse on the side of the coolant bottle right here. It's probably not a good idea. But, you know, it's your Jeep. Do whatever you want. With the starter loosely connected, I put in the ground wires. With everything routed as I saw fit, the nuts and bolts all got tightened down snug. The AC and alternator mini harness is in. Alright, now we just gotta clean everything up. And for good measure, I'll put the battery in for a feel on where the terminals will sit. Here's what I'm thinking. Battery positive to fuse box, kind of wraps around under it, but above that lower bracket. Because if you put it below that, it kind of cinches up against it. I don't really like that. You may have to unplug other things to route the wires where you want them to go. But from fuse box, we go to fuse, which I just have zip tied around the coolant bottle. And then from fuse, it goes to alternator. And we've got, you know, the other harness kind of shoved in there randomly right now. Still piecing it together. And the negative terminal is pretty easy. It's just kind of weird the way you have to bend it backwards. I don't want to connect the battery yet though, so I'm just doing one at a time. And instead of the starter wire going under the oil filter up through this cavity right here, I think I'm just going to have it go over the oil filter so that the wire doesn't have to make any weird bends in it. Negative's kind of easy. From the engine block, it just kind of goes straight and then makes a loop around the cruise control. And make sure it's not rubbing up against that vacuum line on the cruise control. So I've got this section pretty ironed out. I'm going to put a zip tie like right here to hold that back. And I'm just tightening all the connections down. Still got to do the starter. I have wrapped this wire in some of the old loom and a lot of electrical tape and then zip tied it here so it doesn't rub up against anything. And I was going to go put this cover back on, but the sides of it interfere with the new wire. So as you can see, I've cut off this side. I'm going to repeat that for this side. You don't technically need this, but it makes it look nice. There we go. I've got the smaller harness kind of wrapped alongside the main big wires here, and suddenly I have all this extra wire. I don't know how that happened, but it's connected everywhere it's supposed to be. And I'm reusing some of my old wire loom because it's, you know, it's not bad. I was looking around this area, and the only concern I'm seeing right now is this wire may interfere with oil filter removal in the future. So I think I'm going to undo this and wrap it behind this AC line right here, which might give me a little bit more space. Wire loom can be found pretty much anywhere, like Walmart, if the original stuff just crumbles apart. Alright, so I'm already running into issues. I'm performing a mock oil change here. And I can get the filter all the way down to where it needs to be. But I'm thinking, this thing's filled with oil, right? I just took it off. Usually I'd come up through here. But now we're hitting this new fuse and this AC line. So if I try to go over here, again, dumping out oil everywhere as I tilt this, I gotta move the throttle cables or whatever to get the oil filter out of there. Maybe this wouldn't be such a problem if I didn't have AC. Everything is kind of tidied up. Anywhere there's any chance of wires rubbing up against anything, I have it wrapped in loom and electrical tape. I've got it zip tied in a whole bunch of places. It looks like a goddamn catastrophe, but, you know, just look at the diagram, put the wires where they're supposed to go, and I threw the battery back in here, which there is a little bracket that's supposed to go right there, but it's annoying and you don't need it, so I just got rid of it. Almost ready to connect the negative terminal. The only thing we're missing is this wire right here, which goes from the engine block to the firewall back in this corner. Before I forget, even though I'm not using this little bracket anymore, I just put it back where it goes in case I decide to change my mind at some point later. At the back corner of the cylinder head is a lone 11/16 nut on head bolt number 14. I moved the harness out of the way for just enough room to reach it. Yes, come here. There we go. On the firewall, a 15mm bolt. Oh, that one wants to break too. The engine block to chassis wire is interestingly not a wire at all, but a strap. The main reason we see this opposed to a regular wire is because of the sheer amount of vibration this thing has to deal with throughout its life. A regular wire here might break over time. This isn't really a concern with the JeepCables though, because the wire is so thick, so if it ever does break, it won't be for another 20 years probably. I fished the new cable behind the harness and again cleaned off the threads on this bolt. With the nut on the cylinder head and the bolt in the firewall tightened down, that's the Big 7 upgrade from JeepCables done. But one more thing I want to talk about quick is while you're in this area here, take a look at these two wiring harnesses and make sure this one is zip tied right here. Because twice now on two different Jeeps, I've seen that zip tie break and the wire harness will fall down and rub on the edge of the fuel rail. Expo called upon the Cherokee XJ server in distress one day, broke down on the interstate in none other than Chicago. The engine shut off with no warning and would crank, but not start. We all guessed the crankshaft position sensor because, you know, that's what it always is. But that didn't change anything, and he had to have it towed home across state lines. Expo spent the next few weeks trying to figure this out. He chased blown fuses, tried different ECMs, but the Jeep just wouldn't start. Poking around, he noticed the engine harness had fallen off the firewall and had been rubbing against the fuel rail, long enough that it had eaten a hole in the loom and cut some of the wires inside it. So he repaired the harness, and just like that, all was well and good. So I've kept an eye out for that ever since. So you remember what happened to Expo?
Yeah.
Remember how his wiring harness was rubbing up against the fuel rail right there?
Oh!
Look at that, yep. It cracked the insulation right open. I don't see any busted wires though, but...
It feels kind of chafed there, but it ain't bad.
Yeah, there we go. It's a good thing we caught that, huh?
Yeah.
So, for preventative measures, I put a second zip tie there, just in case. Because you never know. Anyway, now we see if I shorted anything out.
Oh my god, it didn't blow up.
And with that, we're golden.
So these are like the best conditioned stock wires I've ever seen. I don't see any rips or tears or missing insulation anywhere. So I didn't really need to do this upgrade. Not, it didn't hurt anything, obviously. And anonymous Benefactor sent me all these things for free, so I really appreciate it, guy. I would have gotten around to it someday, eventually, just to make a video on it. But yeah, now I just have these serviceable stock electrical wires to throw away.
Maybe we can use some of those wires for cherry pie, huh? Or maybe Cam should pay me yet. It's been a year now.